Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ English. A very good morning and welcome to the Hindu newspaper class with me. That's for 19th March 2026. So we shall be analyzing all the UPSC relevant articles from the Hindu newspaper New Delhi edition. And before I show you which articles have I selected for us to discuss, here's the quick access to QR code of the Telegram channel, which I shall be using to update you about latest important UPSC information bits. We shall be discussing various aspects related to the exam. So those students who haven't already can join the channel through this QR code. And now here are about 7 articles that are UPSC relevant from today's newspaper. Yes, we shall start from the editorial page like we always do. And editorial page is also a diverse page today because we shall be looking into the NCERT book controversy versus the Honorable Supreme Court of India's verdict. So we are looking at GS paper 2 here, polity and governance. Proceeded with that, we shall be looking into a very interesting conference that's now ongoing in Africa, in the country of Cameroon, that is related to WTO and associated reforms in global trade structure. And then the other articles are mostly taken from international affairs, geopolitics. So we shall be looking into the maps of West Asia, a topic that all my students thoroughly enjoy. Now, unfortunately, today I will not be able to have a live chat with you because owing to some personal emergencies, I will not be there with you tomorrow and the day after. But I shall join you with the live session and with the most enthusiastic Hindu coverage on the coming Monday. Today, you have to bear with me because you can understand these articles, do the questions. I shall be a part of the video, but I cannot engage in a live chat. Apologies for that. But coming Monday, everything shall be back to square one. And just tomorrow and the day after, that's Friday and Saturday, I may not be there. So just bear with me. Whichever important news headlines are made on Friday and Saturday, I shall come back and discuss with you on the coming Monday. Okay. And also, I shall be keeping you updated through the Telegram channel. So now let's begin with the first article for the day. This is NCERT book ban, a chapter on judicial transparency. What is this article talking about? Well, the article is discussing how the Honorable Supreme Court of India has recently criticized NCERT textbook, and the Supreme Court of India also put a ban on the book. The writer of this article, rather, the writers of this article, are arguing against this. They are asking, is it valid to ban the NCERT book only because the book chose to criticize the judiciary? Because the book spoke about certain cases of corruption and delays in the judiciary. Is that not a valid thing to do in a democracy? Is contempt of court the same thing as open, liberal criticism of judicial practices? And therefore, is it not a violation of the fundamental right, Article 19(1)(a)? That's the pitch raised by this article. Let's quickly understand what has been happening. Now, we know that the Honorable Supreme Court of India had very recently banned certain sections of the grade 8th NCERT book. Why? Because the court felt the book was talking about judicial corruption and case delays. Now, we have seen through several Hindu newspaper articles that today the number of cases pending in front of the Honorable Supreme Court have crossed 88,000. They are now touching 90,000 and above. This is when the Honorable Court is running at full collegium capacity. And this is an issue that has been pointed out even by the soon to be First Lady Chief Justice of India, Justice Nagaratna. But when the NCERT book chose to talk about it, the Honorable Court took it as an insult. And therefore, the writer of the article says this is a clear case of violating fundamental right, Article 19(1)(a), that deals with the freedom of speech. Because any restriction on Article 19(1)(a) should only be done when it is under Article 19(2). That means through a law made by the government, through a law made by the parliament. And in this case, there has been no law made by any parliament. This is not a law. This is just a court order. So is the ban justified? Is it not constitutionally questionable? Now, here, therefore, we must talk about a very interesting Supreme Court case. Okay, you do remember about Article 19(1)(a), but the Supreme Court case from 1966 becomes crucial here. Now, which case am I talking about? We are talking about Naresh Sridhar Mirajkar versus the state of Maharashtra case. So let me quickly write down here Naresh Sridhar versus state of Maharashtra. And this is 1966. What happened during this important case? Now, during this case, there was a witness in the case. He was giving his, testimony in the court. But later, he requested that his testimony should not be published in the newspaper. And the Bombay High Court agreed to that demand, to that request, and the court said, let us not publish this. And the court restricted his testimony, the witness's testimony, from publication. But then later, there was a well-known journalist called Naresh Mirajkar who challenged this court order. And he said that this is a violation of freedom of speech, Article 19(1)(a). This is a violation of not just right to equality, but also it is a clear-cut violation in the larger principle of transparency in judicial process, because everything that is testimonied in the court, everything that's spoken about in the court has to be published in broad daylight. Why should it be restricted? And today, when the Supreme Court itself is asking the NCERT book to get banned, to prohibit these sections on criticism, the same thing is being highlighted. It means that there is the freedom of speech, and that has to be upheld in any situation whatsoever. And therefore, the writer of this article, both the writers are calling this as judicial overreach. They are saying the courts are supposed to protect rights. We know about the right to constitutional remedies. Under Article 32, a citizen whose fundamental rights are getting abridged can reach the Supreme Court. Vis-a-vis, the person can also address the issue to high courts under Article 226. But now it is the Honorable Court who themselves are trying to ban the book because they feel that citizens have no higher authority beyond court to appeal. Is this not a weakening of democracy? Now, the argument about contempt of court looks very weak in this case because under the Act Contempt of Court, 1971. Now, 1971 should remind most of my students of the Ramsar Convention. Why am I saying that? Because it's off topic, but then at least we can connect current affairs with each other. Yes, and we have seen Ramsar on the map recently, so you can link it from there. Now, under the Contempt of Court Act 1971, contempt requires a serious interference with justice. But general discussion about case backlog, corruption concerns, certain times lack of transparency in collegium are not automatically the contempt of court. And therefore, if you look at the global best practices, we can here take an example even from Kenya. Now, in Kenya, there were judiciary reforms from 2011 to 2013. Now, as I say 2011, I'm sure it reminds you of 2010. Was there a broad movement that happened in the Arabic countries during that time, which led to the removal of autocratic regimes in most of them? You can mention in the comment box because I shall be a part of the comment box and I can have a look there. You can let me know. So talking about Kenya from 2011, Kenya took certain drastic judicial reforms. For example, initiating the Ombudsman scheme, initiating public feedback system, and what's the result? In Kenya right now, the public trust on judiciary has shot up from 27% to 61%. So therefore, the key lesson that we can learn in Indian context is that criticism must be accepted, reforms should be done, and public trust is the backbone of a democracy. And Indian judiciary itself has acknowledged that corruption exists. There are few bad apples in any apple cart, no matter which organization you talk about. There is a case backlog that we know from the newspaper reports. There was another court case coming from 1991. Yes, now you might think of the LPG reform, the same time period, 1991. At that time, it was observed in a case called Veeraswamy versus the Union of India case. I'm writing it here. Veeraswamy versus the Union of India case. In this court case, it was observed that judges are also public servants and therefore they must be held accountable for corruption. So, what's the key conclusion of this article? Suppressing criticism is a dangerous precedent, especially when it's done by the topmost authority in judiciary, that's the Honorable Supreme Court. And acknowledging problem is the first step to create a longer term reform. Free speech doesn't harm anybody. It only shows that people are participating. People are conscious of reality, and therefore the book ban from NCERT is just not only a violation of a fundamental right, Article 1912, it also shows significant intolerance that's happening in India right now. So, therefore, we need continuous self reform. We need to encourage people to come open in public policy debate rather than getting scared of criticism. Okay, that's the pitch of this article. Now, let me present the question. And since I'm not there today, actively to engage with you, I hope you can find the right answer and verify the answers from the last page or the last slide of this entire PPT. All right. Okay. Now consider the following statements regarding freedom of speech and judicial actions in India. 1. A judicial order can be considered a law under Article 19(2) for imposing reasonable restrictions on free speech. Second, mere means only general criticism of judicial corruption automatically amounts to the contempt of court under the Contempt of Court Act 1971. And 3. If the courts themselves restrict free speech, citizens may have limited remedies as constitutional courts are the final arbiters of fundamental rights. Quite an interesting question. Easy question for you. I know that. So try to answer. Even if there is a split, no problem. Monday we can come back and discuss it if you wish to do so. I might just post the answers in the Telegram also, so stay tuned for that. Now, second article is also editorial, but this time we are looking at GS paper 3. Global trade and WTO, the World Trade Organization. In the past few months, we have seen the most developed countries, including US, using tariff barriers as a weapon of political war. We know that US, by imposing 50% tariff on countries like India, Brazil, initially 143% on China, only because these countries were importing Russian Ural oil, US has broken down a very key protocol of WTO. And my students know I'm talking about MFN protocol, most favored nation. If you put a tariff on one country to a certain percentage, you must put the same tariff on all the countries equally because all of them are your trading partners. But if you have a free trade agreement with a certain country, in that case, you might give that country some special rebate. But US did not do that. US was very arbitrary and US kept on putting arbitrary tariff until it became a full-fledged tariff war. And since then, India's not just foreign policy, but also trade has become heavily diversified. Now, yesterday in one of my current affairs videos, which you might find on the channel today, I have spoken about how now India is also going to sign free trade agreement, including one preferential trade agreement and one free trade agreement with the nations of Philippines and Maldives. We know we already have an FTA with countries like New Zealand. We have one with Australia. We have now a SEPA with Canada, including Oman and UAE that are already existing, and many, many more countries. In fact, with US also now there is a negotiation of FTA, just that India has made it very clear that until tariff calculations are correct, I am not in for signing any FTA again. So now for India also things have changed, but the topic is exclusively criticizing the tariff terror imposed under President Trump's regime. So what are we looking at? Now a very interesting thing is going to happen, because at the end of this month, March, there is going to be a major conference. It's a WTO ministerial conference that shall be held in Yaoundé. That's the capital of a country called Cameroon in Africa. I will show you a map so that you can relate better with Cameroon. Okay, so focus on the map. And as you are looking at Cameroon, a very good idea, we must also look at the Atlantic Ocean. the coastal areas here, we must also look at the neighboring territories of Cameroon. Now, these are not new to us. We have spoken about the DRC multiple times. We have spoken about the civil war here. We have spoken about Sudan and South Sudan civil war about here. We have seen Nigeria oil reserves. Okay, so the map is not a new thing for us, but we can have a look at the map. What has happened now in this country, Cameroon, the capital Yaoundé? We are going to have a big WTO ministerial conference. Why is it important? Because it is coming at a great time. Because right now the world trade is becoming political. It is showing monopolistic tendencies instead of transparent, rule based, reform based order. What's the main problem? Earlier, trade used to be mostly economic. Even regional groupings initially were all made because of economic benefit to respective countries, and therefore all the countries used to follow certain rules initiated from WTO. But things changed rapidly. Now, as Mr. Trump is in his second regime, trade has become a geopolitical tool. Countries are using tariff as pressure tactic and economic dependence upon them. Result: WTO is weakening and public trust, global trust on platforms like WTO, let alone WTO, even WHO and UN is now eroding day by day. Even IMF. I know most of you must be thinking about how IMF has bailed out Pakistan despite Pahalgam terror attacks. So you see, that's what make countries lose faith in these institutions. The fact that India has been waging a battle for permanent candidature in UNSC and still no result. That means they are highly closed bodies now. So what's the WTO crisis really? That the dispute system is not working properly. WTO's appellate body is now a paralyzed body. Rules are existing, but only on paper. They are not getting any enforcement. There is a very slow decision making at WTO. Why? You have total 166 countries, and all the countries have different interests. For example, the global south priorities might be very different from the global north priority. A very good example of this dichotomy is the COP30 Belém Brazil summit, in which developed countries are still shying away from committing their NDCs and Carbon Finance Fund under Paris Agreement 2015. But the developing countries, the global south ones, led by nations like India, Brazil, are already asking for $1.3 trillion finance every year by 2035. You see, there is a difference of priority here. So therefore, reaching a majority is difficult at WTO. Delays only mean weak implementation, weak outcome. Plus, the WTO rule body is an outdated one now. Protocols were created as early as 1995, and today we are living in the time of digital trade. We are looking during times of tech-based economy. We are talking about AI and the domination of AI in economic process, job, employment, production, and therefore climate trade, carbon trading issues are equally crucial because of global warming and climate change. And therefore, all the rules of WTO now seem really outdated. They are coming from 1990s, and now we are living in a whole new time. So WTO protocols are quite obsolete now. And looking at rise of power politics, now we know that most of the countries are preferring to do bilateral deals rather than become a part of larger regional grouping. A very good example here we can see from India's own experience. You know that ASEAN is considered as the largest free trade agreement in the whole world. And ASEAN is related to RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. But because India was experiencing a trade deficit, and Indian sensitive areas like dairy and agriculture were getting vulnerable as India was dealing with RCEP nations, India withdrew from RCEP in 2019. And today, what has India done? Although we withdrew from RCEP, we are selectively signing PTAs, FTAs, and CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership with countries independently. A very good example could be the recent FTA with Australia and the recent, in record time, 9 months, a free trade agreement with New Zealand. So separate bilateral agreements are much better for your economic priorities rather than becoming a part of an ongoing regional group. Then most countries are facing unilateral tariff right now rather than WTO rules. There was a time when countries used to be afraid of FATF, Financial Action Task Force. Countries used to be afraid about UN sanctions and UN's embargo, arms embargo. Gone is that time. Now, countries are not afraid of UN sanctions, countries are afraid of US sanctions. The fact that Russia today is still exporting its oil in shadow fleet, whether it's to China, whether it's to India. Russia has a monopoly right now. We all know Hormuz is shut. We know that alternate routes are time taking. And therefore, majority countries in South Asia are buying Russian oil. But till date, all this oil is called shadow fleet. Why? Because of US sanctions, not UN sanctions. Similarly, Pakistan has now started selling arms and weapons to countries like Libya, to countries like Namibia. Why? All these are war torn areas. But how can Pakistan sell weapons to Libya? Libya is under UN arms embargo, but still it is selling. That means there is no value of UN embargo, but when it comes to UN sanction, yes, there seems to be a value. So we are looking at a very monopolistic world where WTO rules don't matter and trade is becoming highly unpredictable. Stronger countries are dominating on the poorer ones. Example, suddenly India was forced into another tariff, this time on solar panels and related products. At the same time, recently, the stoppage on migration, H1B visa controversy to the US. Suddenly, the pressure coming from US that India should open up agriculture and dairy as a part of ongoing US FTA terms of reference. And then if you look at European Union, mother of all the trade agreement, Ramu calls it mode. Yes, mother of all the trade agreements. With European Union, India has an FTA. Now look at that. Despite the fact that India is a country of global south, we are still experiencing non-tariff trade barriers in the form of CBAM, carbon border adjustment mechanism. So you see, the developed countries are always overweighing the developing ones, and it is the third world countries which are facing the worst repercussion. Do we need any reforms? Of course we do. What reforms? We should have a better dispute settlement mechanism. Make enforcement system strong again. Solve problems like agriculture subsidy and unequal trade rules. Talk about justice, not just about rules. We must have a new charter for WTO to include digital trade, to include AI use in economy, to talk about climate policies, carbon finance, carbon border adjustment mechanism, and global supply chain. We must make WTO flexible, allow smaller group agreements rather than pan global agreement. That can bring transparency and inclusivity. So, therefore, time has now come to shift from rule based, which is determined by powerful countries, that means monopoly power based, to transparent rule based situation for WTO. And WTO reform is crucial to protect weaker nations in the long term and to maintain stability in global trade. Otherwise, what happens? Poor economies will continue to be fractured, and economies like EU and Russia and US and China will keep calling shots. Okay, so that's it for this article. Let's quickly have a look at the question. Consider the following statements regarding WTO. 1. WTO dispute settlement system is currently fully functional and effectively it enforces effectively global trade rules. Second, in recent times, global trade is increasingly influenced by geopolitical considerations like tariff and economic coercion. Coercion means force compulsion. 3. If multilateral trade rules become weak, smaller and developing countries are likely to be more adversely affected than the stronger economies. This is a very easy question for you. So try to answer, and I hope you reach your consensus. Else, I will share the answers in the Telegram, and then answers are here as well. Third article, also editorial. Also, International Relations GS paper 2. We are looking at Pakistan-Afghanistan once again. So let's quickly have a look at the map, and as we break this article down, let's talk about the controversy. The bigger controversy in Pakistan-Afghanistan ongoing war right now are two. One, it is a breakdown of Geneva Convention. It's a breakdown of international humanitarian law. Civilians, old air bases, like yesterday we talked about the Phoenix camp near Kabul, the Bagaram air base also we have discussed earlier, that's also near the capital city. Such important strategic areas are being hit by Pakistan. in Afghanistan. At the same time, it's leading to refugee crisis. And yesterday, 400 people died. That's day before yesterday when Pakistan airstriked a rehabilitation medical center near Kabul. And this is quite dehumanizing. So this article is saying how Pakistani airstrike on Afghanistan have worsened regional stability. And India, as the voice of global south, as the net security provider in Indian Ocean, as the fourth largest economy in the world and a swing state in between, must now seek international support to stop this war from escalating further. So what exactly is happening? Pakistan is repeatedly doing airstrikes on Afghanistan. We know about the rehab center crisis. We know that Pakistan doesn't even agree. Pakistan says, I am not attacking civilians, I am attacking targeted terror base of TTP, Tariq-e-Taliban Pakistan, a terror group that Pakistan claims originates in Afghanistan but creates terror activities within Pakistan, which Afghanistan certainly denies. Taliban says we are not financing any terror group against Pakistan. What does Afghanistan and India believe? Both India and Afghanistan believe Pakistan is not saying the truth right now. It is an attack on civilian. You can't justify that, saying that you were only attacking the TTP terror outfits. That's not true. They have killed 400 people in a rehab center, and that's not a small thing. But why is the conflict happening? Conflict is happening because Pakistan accuses Taliban of supporting TTP. Afghanistan denies that. In terms of larger geopolitical situation, there is an ongoing war right now in West Asia. A war between US plus Israel versus Iran. Operation Roaring Lion and Epic Fury versus Operation True Promise 4. The war in West Asia will not end soon. As we are discussing, US is already using bunker blaster bombs. Iran is already employing Sejal 2 missile. Top leadership of Iran is getting killed every day in the war. US refuses to withdraw. Iran refuses to give up. So therefore, the focus of the entire world is on West Asia and oil security, including points like Strait of Hormuz. Who has the time? Who has the capacity to focus on this war that's going on in Pakistan-Afghanistan region? Most of the global focus is diverted. It gives Pakistan a very good liberty to do what it wants to and keep on breaking United Nations Charter Article 2.4. Terror attack on another country. That too unprovoked. Unilateral. Then there is another reason Pakistan feels insecure. That's because India, Afghanistan are having a relationship. India has a consulate in Afghanistan. India doesn't support the ideology of Taliban 2.0 regime, but India does support reconstruction efforts in Taliban. India tries to support anti-narcotic operations, educational reforms, agriculture best practices, sustainable irrigation. We all know about dams like Shehtoot, Kabul. Yes, Salma. All these are Indian infrastructure in Afghanistan, and Pakistan is accusing Afghanistan of being pro-India. Why is it serious? Because it will create a full-scale war in the region if not stopped. Already West Asia is highly unstable. I mean, look at the boundary of these two countries. The next door neighbor, Iran, is already in crisis. It's burning up. Now, the war, if it's escalating here as well, means from West Asia right up till Indian border, there is an ongoing war. There is refugee crisis. There is always a risk of terror network influx in India. It will impact more trade in terms of global supply chain. It will cause energy crisis. It is definitely a humanitarian crisis. Can India do something? Now, the problem with Indian situation right now is that India cannot talk with Pakistan. There is hardly any bilateral relation remaining now. India cannot directly engage with Taliban also because India does reconstruction in Taliban, but India doesn't raise political issues with Taliban. It's a whole different ideology regime. So, is there a solution? Yes. India can call for investigation. India can request for de-escalation. India can do this through bodies like Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Why? Because both India and Pakistan are closely associated with Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Can anybody tell me Today I'm not there to see the comment, but at least I can see the comment as I'm a part of the live chat. Can you tell me, in which year did India and Pakistan join the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the crucial summit that India attended in 2025 in Beijing, which resulted in a declaration called Tianjin Declaration? So India can use SCO for better negotiation and ask for help from countries like Russia and China to negotiate with Pakistan. So therefore, India can initiate a multilateral diplomacy here because direct diplomacy is limited. And for Pakistan, it is also a tight situation. It is experiencing a threefold pressure: India, Afghanistan, Baloch terrorism, Baloch incursion, at the same time also internal terrorism, TTP. So therefore, this may relieve pressure on India because Pakistan is too busy solving its issues, but India must use global bodies to address issues like this ongoing war. Okay, quickly the question. Consider the following statements regarding recent Pakistan-Afghanistan tensions. I hope in the map you saw the Durand line already, a border which Taliban doesn't recognize, but Pakistan does as a bilateral boundary. One, Pakistan has officially accepted responsibility of targeting civilian infrastructure in Afghanistan during its airstrike. Two, India has formal diplomatic recognition of Taliban government in Afghanistan and is actively mediating the conflict. And three, the ongoing global focus on West Asia may reduce international security on Pakistan's actions in Afghanistan. A, B, C, D are the options. You can pick the valid option. This is an easy question, slightly confusing though. All right. Now, the text page article. What is so new and controversial about the Transgender Rights Bill? So, we are looking at GS paper 2. Social justice, vulnerable communities, and transgender and third gender communities in India are indeed the vulnerable communities. So, therefore, what does this article say? Now, article is saying that the Indian government has today proposed some changes to the transgender law. But there is a problem. These new changes are removing the right to self identified gender. And this may go against the earlier Supreme Court order in the Nalsa judgment and fundamental rights of Indian Constitution. So quickly, what's the Nalsa judgment? Nalsa judgment from the Supreme Court said that self determination of gender is a fundamental right. You can choose your gender because your biological sexual identity and your social identity as the gender with which you relate yourself to are two different things. Now, biologically, it's a very rare condition when people are born intersex. But there is always a problem of gender. There is always a problem of gender. You know the word, I have spoken about it multiple times. There is a problem of gender dysphoria. Yes, sometimes people are not able to associate the gender that is assigned to them on the basis of their sexual biological identity. And that leads to the problem of alternate gender realities. Today, we have a very broad definition of gender. We say that gender is quite a fluid identity. We talk about the LGBTQ2 plus groups. That means people are there who do not necessarily associate with any gender and they believe in fluidity. They believe in being queer. They still question their gender, which is all right, which is okay. Society should not ideally impose a gender on people. And this is what Supreme Court said in the Nalsa judgment. Deciding your gender is a fundamental right, then what went wrong today? During Nalsa judgment, the court clearly said transgender people are protected under Article 14, right to equality before the law, irrespective of your gender or sexual identity. Article 19(1)(a). In India, we believe in the right to free speech and expression, and that includes gender expression. Yes, it's about Article 21, the right to life, dignity, liberty. That includes personal autonomy. Then there is the Puttaswamy verdict, right to privacy. We know that you can determine your gender. That's what the Supreme Court said. In fact, there was a IPC section called Section 377 that was also removed because it used to criminalize homosexuality. Now, all these were crucial. The Navtej Singh Johar case also was in the picture here. Today, what's the problem? What's this new change about? Suddenly, the government is saying we must remove the right to self perceived gender identity. People should not choose their gender. We must have medical or biological criteria to define transgender people. We have to go to a medical board who will give us identity certificate. And sex realignment surgery, SRS, should be an important criteria for recognizing legally your gender. Increase punishments for crimes against transgender people. So increasing punishment is a very good amendment that the government is now talking about. But removing the right for self-determination of gender is getting controversial. Because crime against transgender people are only increasing day by day. And by denying them the right to self determination, further paralyzes the purpose. Now, earlier, the government had passed an amendment in 2019. What was that? Punishments were limited against transgender and less severe. Now, the new amendment will make harsher punishments like high fine, longer jail term, and sometimes even life imprisonment in the case of aggraved assault. Yes, but why is it controversial? Because this new amendment is completely going against Nalsa verdict of Supreme Court 2014. In the Nalsa verdict, the Honorable Court said gender identity is self determined. You don't need a medical proof for that. But today, what's happening? The government is saying, no, you need a medical proof to show your gender reality. You can't self presume your gender. It is a violation of fundamental right, Article 21. Personal liberty, autonomy, the right to dignity, the right to life itself. There is a concern that many transgender people, because they do not have access to medical board, they can't furnish the document, they can't explain to the doctor the internal conflict they feel with regards to their gender alignment. They may lose their identity rights. It might exclude many people. It could create division within their own community. But what does the government say? Government says the current law is too vague, it's too ambiguous. We don't have any clear definition of transgender. So how will we identify who is the beneficiary of government schemes like the Smile scheme for transgender, like Ayushman Bharat for transgender? So therefore, we must focus on biological basis, medical basis, not self-identification. But now we are seeing a conflict between self-identification, which is a right-based approach, versus medical biological verification, which is a government-controlled approach. So how can we conclude that? The amendment today shifts from a right-based, inclusive approach to a restrictive, government-controlled approach, raising concerns about constitutionality and dignity of transgender people. Quite an important question for GS paper 2, and indeed quite an ethical one as well. So quickly the question. Consider the following statements regarding the Transgender Persons Protection of Right Amendment Bill 2026. 1. The proposed amendment removes statutory, that's legal recognition of right to self-perceived gender identity present in the 2019 Act. Second, amendment continues to mandate that gender identity certificates be issued solely, only on the basis of self-declaration without any medical or institutional verification. And 3, the amendment introduces a stricter penal provision including higher punishments for offences against transgender people. Which of these are valid? Quickly try to answer and let me know eventually. And now we proceed with another article. This is very interesting for you because it's coming from IR, International Relations GS2, the hot favorite of my students. Let's go to West Asia. Not exactly West Asia. Let's go to the Russian Ural oil and see what's happening here. What's happening? There was a China-bound Russian oil tanker that got suddenly diverted towards India. And now very soon it's going to reach Mengaluru in Karnataka in India, bringing India additional supply of crude oil. So that's a good thing for us, yes. But what happened? Due to the ongoing global conflict and severe sanctions on Russia, all imposed by US, starting from 2022 Russia-Ukraine war, this is kind of hypocritical. The same US that had imposed 4-year-long sanctions on Russian Ural oil No country can buy Russian oil. And therefore, all the Russian oil used to go to countries like India, China, Brazil, Japan, South Korea through shadow fleet, through secret oil embargoes. All these used to carry a fake flag. All these were carrying unreported amount of oil. All these were trying to escape the radar system because they did not want to be tracked because US could have attacked. It was under US sanction. Today, the same Mr. Trump is telling India that you can buy Russian oil. In fact, everybody can buy Russian oil, no problem. I'm only going to put 10% tariff on all the countries under the new revised tariff policy in US when the Supreme Court of US intervened. And now every country can buy the Ural oil. I have no worries. But then why is Russian oil still shadow fleet? Because sanctions still continue. Although there is a limited permission, waiver given for countries to buy Russian oil, the sanctions continue, showing America's and petrodollar monopoly in the global energy system. So what happened? Oil supply routes are changing now, and India is adjusting its imports accordingly. Why? Because Strait of Hormuz, from where 30% of global crude passes, and India, a country that's importing 85 to 90% of its crude oil necessity, is now having no choice. Strait of Hormuz is closed. So therefore, now we are looking up to Russia to take maximum oil from there. So what recently happened? There was a Russian oil tanker named as Aqua Titan. I repeat, the name was Aqua Titan. What happened? It was coming as a shadow fleet, very secretly. Suddenly, it took an unusual turn, and rather than going to China, it is now coming to Karnataka in India, heading towards Mangaluru. Mangaluru is in the news also because of the underground deep cavern facility of LPG LNG, the largest in India, that was inaugurated last year in 25. Because now we know India doesn't have too many strategic reserves of LPG LNG also. Yes, but this is unusual for Aqua Titan to have done this because usually ships in the sea do not change routes so suddenly. Then what happened now? Why? Because Russia is in sanction. The ships are a part of dark fleet, shadow fleet, non-sanctioned fleet. Therefore, these ships avoid any kind of tracking device. They take indirect and longer routes. Now, geopolitical tension in West Asia has also broken out owing to Iran conflict, and Strait of Hormuz between Iran versus UAE and Oman is also closed. No matter how much countries like US wanted to open, Iran will not open that route. After all, top leaders of Iran are getting killed day by day. Iran will not allow that. Plus, US is constantly threatening and attacking islands like Kharg Island, Northern Persian Gulf, biggest oil export terminal of Iran, Qashqai Island, plus many more important nuclear plant facilities like Bushehr. Yesterday it was attacked by the bunker blaster technology from US. It's a 5,000 pounds bomb. Imagine that. So why will Iran open Hormuz? Iran will not open. So now what's happening? Because of oil crisis, US allowed India for 1 month. I repeat, only temporarily, for 1 month to buy Russian oil. So suddenly all the ships have taken a U-turn and now they are coming towards India. But what about Saudi oil? What about oil from Saudi Arabia? Now, Saudi Arabia also cannot export any oil from Hormuz. My students know Hormuz thoroughly. Many of you must be smiling now at Hormuz. Yes, opens into Gulf of Oman, Arabian Sea. Now, what about Saudi oil? Hormuz is closed. It can't come from this route. So, what will Saudi do now? Saudi is exploring an alternative route. This is called a port in Red Sea called Yanbu Port. Can you see on the map? Yes. Please look at the map, Bache. Everybody should look at the Mediterranean Sea here. Yes. We also know about Port of Sudan, which Russia, Mr. Putin has purchased because he lost Tartus. Terikula will talk about Tartus now, I know. Yes. Suez Canal here in Egypt, connecting to Red Sea. Bab el-Mandeb, Gulf of Aden. So what is Saudi doing? Because Hormuz is shut, Saudi is now rerouting the oil from Yanbu port. This is a slightly longer route. Oil to actually first come here, then travel the Red Sea, then Bab el-Mandeb, then Gulf of Aden, and then finally Arabian Sea. This was a shortcut, but now you can't use it. No? So therefore, now Saudi is using the Yanbu port. Remember, it's in Saudi Arabia. The route is longer. but safer. Because right now, the Houthis in the Yemen area, who usually try to cut the undersea cables and create a havoc in Bab al Mandeb, are under control because of repeated Israel attack. Israel has been able to keep them under some suppressed state by repeatedly launching attacks at axis of resistance from Iran supporters like, Lebanon Hezbollah, like, Houthi, Yemen. So therefore now this route is much safer and Saudi is sending all the oil from here. It may take long, at least it's safe. What about India? India is busy diversifying oil import. Russia plus Saudi plus Norway plus US plus certain West African countries. This shows Indian government is committed for continuous supply. Now at the Mangalore refinery, the biggest refinery, we might have enough crude stock if all these imports continue to come to India. And that's exactly what this article was talking about. So please see the map, everyone. Try to internalize. Those who find it difficult, look what a controversial situation right now. Iran is in a massive war. Now look at the boundary of Iran. Afghanistan, Pakistan are also in a war. What impact can it have on India? Look at the refugee crisis, supply chain disruptions here. Infrastructure like Chabahar port already at the risk of getting damaged completely. Bandar Abbas port getting attacked repeatedly. Kharg Island, Quesham Island, all these are not safe anymore. Now you also see how other countries like Lebanon are getting involved in the war. Southern Lebanon, Litani River, Hezbollah. Yes. How other countries like UAE and Oman, the mediating country Qatar, Al Udeid became a part of the war. Iraq is also involved today. Why is Iraq involved? Because Iraq has militia. Who is militia? Axis of resistance of Iran. They are retaliating against Israel. So US is using the Kurdish forces to attack militia. Kurdish, a major ethnic group spread across these countries. Turkey, Syria, Iraq. Turkey is fed up of Kurdish rebellion movement and therefore Abdullah Öcalan is in imprisonment in Turkey since 1999. Okay, so remember all these, bache. You can see 3 strategic choke points here. Suez Canal, Bab al Mandeb, Strait of Hormuz. Is that clear to everyone? And if you go towards the right, then Malacca and then finally Sunda. Very, very good. So that's it for this article. Now the last one almost for the day. What are we looking at? We are looking at how Iran refuses to give up. And Iran is hitting the Gulf energy sites after its own gas fields were attacked. So what's going on? Now the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, southern Lebanon under Litani River, is intensifying, creating heavy civilian death and large-scale refugee crisis. Why? Because Israel has recently bombed Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. Let's go to the map again. Capital of Lebanon. It has been severely bombed here. You can see here, bacha, Lebanon. Severely bombed by Israel. See how close they are to each other. And now there is a constant bombing going on. Crowded areas are getting hit in the capital city of Lebanon, Beirut. Many people have been killed. And there was the senior officer of Hezbollah who also died. Buildings and infrastructure are crumbling down. They are collapsing. And why did all this happen? Because 100 people were almost initially targeted by Hezbollah. Hezbollah is an Iran supporter. It's a Shia militant group. It fired rockets at Israel to take revenge of Mr. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's death. Yes, Israel responded by attacking airstrikes and doing airstrikes and ground attacks on Lebanon, Beirut. What did the government of Lebanon do? It gave up. It said Hezbollah is being declared as an illegal body. We do not recognize Hezbollah, but the war is still happening between the two countries and the Lebanese government is helpless here. Currently, 1 million people are already displaced. Look at the refugee crisis, internal displacement crisis. Strikes are happening in central Beirut, civilian areas. Bridges and river crossings across Litani River are the worst hit because Israel is now planning to bomb the bridges across Litani River so that there is no supply of weapons to Hezbollah. That was it. And now the very last article for the day. What is it looking at? Okay, here is another map in which I wanted to show you Kharg Island. Then this arrow here is Quesham Island. Okay, this is Iran for you. All right. Okay. Now with this, let's see what's the last article. The last article is also West Asia, bache. What's happening? Israel has conducted waves of attacks on Beirut to strike river crossings. Okay, almost the same thing. US and Israel have been attacking the gas facilities of Iran. Gas facilities. Let's just do the map because all this is integrated piece of news. Okay, so let's go to the map. All right. What is Israel doing? Israel and US are continuing the war. They are not saying we are going to withdraw. Why? What's their intention? Regime change? Sorry, that can't happen. Mr. Mujtaba Khamenei is severely injured right now. His father already died in the war. And now the security chief, the most senior person in Iran, Mr. Ali Larijani, has also been killed. Then there is another senior officer, Mr. Gholam. He also died. All of these people have been terminated. The decapitulation strategy, top leadership killed, but Iran will not give up. So what does US want? A complete regime change? Or now it is just to do as much damage as you possibly can? Especially on sites like Bushehr, Ishfaya, Natanz, Kharg, Qeshm. That's what is the plan of US now. Now, what is Iran saying? Mr. Mujtaba Khamenei clearly said, killers of Mr. Larijani will have to pay the price for it, and they will pay with their life. In response, Iran is attacking oil and gas facilities in neighborhood countries like Qatar. Qatar was hit. Saudi was hit. UAE was hit. Why is it serious? Because attacks are happening on oil refineries and gas fields. It's a direct impact on global energy supply. Now in this war, we are seeing two things that are coming out clearly. No loser, no winner. Second, asymmetric warfare. Saturation strategy of Iran. And three, cycles of retaliation. The war is happening in cycles of retaliation. How? There is an action, there is a reaction, and then there is more escalation. There is no scope of mediation right now. The conflict is intensifying day by day. Yesterday, US attacked Bushehr with bunker blaster. Iran immediately retaliated by attacking Qatar, Saudi, and UAE because oil pipelines and gas fields are here. Iran wants to destroy them. But same Iran had promised all these countries that I have no enmity with you. I am not going to attack you. I don't want other countries to be a part of the war, but that's happening. It's indispensable for Iran right now to take a revenge from US and Israel. Now, war is already spreading across the region. It's not just Iran or Israel anymore. It is entire Gulf region, entire GCC area. It's a threat to global oil, energy, LPG, employment, economic security. It's a threat to all of that. It's a threat to essential medicines. It's a threat to the life of civilians. So therefore, what's the bigger picture? As I said, a war that started as internal protest in Iran became a bilateral war between US and Israel versus Iran. Today, it's a pan-West Asian war. And there are two wars that are happening simultaneously. One on the Iranian frontier, the other on Afghan frontier. Look at the amount of displacement that we are going to witness now. There is always a lack of humanitarian assistance because the crisis is too big to be sorted. So that's it from my side today. No interactions over rather short session. And you can have a look at all the answers here. You can verify them. At the same time, as I said, I will be joining you the coming Monday. This is Lebanon, Beirut here. Cyprus, my students already know. The two important military bases of UK here. The Daghilia and the Arkotiri. Both of them became a part of the war as Iran attacked them. And then you have Syria. Al-Assad regime fell down. Now it is Al-Shara. Okay. All right then. So that's it from my side. Here are the answers. A quick reminder that we are still having the sale for batches of 27 and 28, both of which are starting on 26th March. Do let your friends know about codes live, and I shall share other inputs through Telegram. I am not here for 2 days. I may have to take a leave. That's tomorrow and the day after, Friday and Saturday. So please bear with me, but don't worry, we won't miss anything. I'll come back on Monday and loop in every current affair that we are missing out upon. It's a promise. On that note, stay positive. I really am going to miss all of you because interacting with all of you is such an important part of my life and routine. So God bless you. Lots of love. Have a good weekend. Stay healthy. I'll catch you on Monday. In the meantime, keep your curiosity and interaction on. God bless you. Bye-bye.